Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Michelle Graff, and I'm the editor-in-chief at National Jeweler. I'm pleased to welcome you to the latest episode of My Next Question, National Jeweler's webinar series sponsored by RDI Diamonds. Today's session is hosted by our associate editor, Lenore Fido, and features Mindy Perry, the Chief Marketing Officer at Kendra Scott. Before I turn the discussion over to Lenore and Mindy, I just want to let our attendees know that if they have a question, they can type it into the Zoom Q&A box at the bottom of their screens. I'll be back on at the end of the discussion to facilitate the Q&A. Also, today's session is being recorded and will be available on the National Jeweler website this coming Friday, May 28th. Now I'll turn it over to Lenore and her guests to get things started. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle. And thank you, Mindy, for joining us today. How are you doing?
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited to talk with you today. So I wanted to get started by letting you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure, thank you. Mindy Perry, Chief Marketing Officer here at Kendra Scott. I've been with the company not quite 2 years. Joined right before the pandemic, and this last year has been the wildest ride, I think, for so many of us, and it's been really, really amazing. A little bit about me on the personal side, family, fashion, and philanthropy are our pillars here at Kendra Scott, and it just fit very naturally as this opportunity came to be a couple of years back. I'm a wife, I am a mom to two, so we live out our family pillar each and every day, and that's a little bit about me. Strong passion for accessories and fashion, and on the philanthropy side, even before coming to Kendra Scott, had a really, really values-driven, customer-centric point of view that I really found aligned really nicely with what Kendra stood for herself.
Right. So it's wonderful to have you here today. And so we're going to be talking today about how to drive customer engagement. So we're going to start at the nitty-gritty level, the very, very basics. How would you define customer engagement?
Customer engagement is truly the core of what marketing is, right? Connecting with our customers. And one of the beautiful things that I heard Kendra say very early on in one of my first conversations was how important connection was. And as I then started my onboarding here 2 years ago and really spent the first 2 weeks out in the field, I worked in the stores, and then I went to our distribution center and I picked and packed orders, and I understood how wholesale orders came in and the systems that we used. But it all starts with the customer. And the one phrase that I kept hearing over and over again that I think really sums up what really customer engagement is connection first, and the transaction will come. And so if you can connect with your customer and really understand, what do you stand for? Yes, you have to know who you are, what do you stand for, what are your product offerings, but you also really have to understand the customer, what's important to them. And so we engage with our customers, trying to really start with them, and then we insert ourselves into the conversation in the most relevant way for them.
Right. And so there are a lot of ways that you can connect with your customers. I want to talk first about social media, which is something I know a lot of jewelers have relied on, especially during the lockdown periods. So what are some ways that jewelers can use their social media presence to drive customer engagement?
Yeah, I mean, engaging with customers on social media is a tremendous opportunity to learn about customers too, right? Like you are, understanding what's important to them. It's a place to listen as well as it is to really push out. So, when you think about opportunities to engage with your customers on social, I would first really think about the role of the platforms, right? If you're on Twitter, those short bursts and being able to surface into a relevant conversation or kind of answer customer questions that come through on Twitter is a really important piece. When you look at some of the other platforms, like TikTok, I think a lot of brands have ventured into TikTok, and I will tell you, we build content specific for TikTok. You can't just lift what you did in Instagram or lift what you did in Facebook and put it over on TikTok. The highest performing piece on TikTok for us was one of our social media managers throwing herself on the ground and rolling on it because there was a trend that day on kind of where all the people were doing that to a Beyonce song. So we found what was important to our customers and joined into that dialogue and entered into the conversation on their terms. And then you think about the role of Instagram and Facebook. Facebook has communities. And sometimes it's one of the things I would ask each of you to do is not only what's your presence on Facebook, but what are the communities, the Facebook groups that exist to be able to think about integrating into those conversations with your brand fans that love you or love a topic, and enter into that Facebook community as an expert on that topic and engage with them there. So, you have to have your own channels. I call it organic, your own channels, and you're going to push out your organic content. And then another way when you're ready to kind of take it to the next level after you're pushing your content out on your organic channels is to then layer in paid. And paid media, that's where you can boost that content. So if you have 1,000 followers on Facebook at any given day, when you post something, maybe 200 see that because of the Facebook algorithm. So when you take dollars and put it behind that to boost it, more eyeballs will see that. And then another piece is that prospecting piece and starting to advertise and sponsored content to show up in more people's feeds, whether it's a lookalike, somebody that looks like your customer, or conquesting, looks like maybe a competitor. But there's a lot of really unique ways. And Facebook and Instagram have great ad partners that a quick Google search will get you a contact. And you can, if you don't have one today, pick up the phone. They love to chat, they love to guide, and they'll help walk you through that process too.
Right. And then, so speaking of virtual interaction, I know Kendra Scott, I was looking on your website just the other day, you guys have a virtual personal shopping option. That sounds like something that's pretty fun. How have your customers responded to that?
Oh, it's been great. Comfort levels of being in store have greatly varied over the last year and a half. I think I would imagine that I see some heads shaking up and down if I could see everyone. But for that customer that still wanted that personal touch, that wanted a human interaction, but to do it from the comfort of their couch, I think that they have just loved the experience. And for us, it's been wonderful to stay connected in one-on-one conversations with our customers that maybe weren't quite ready to come back and see us in the store, but they're really looking for style advice for themselves. And we've had a couple where they set up an appointment of, hey, like I can't get there. I'm not, I don't have my vaccine, but I'm looking for a gift. How, can I just walk you through? And what we often do in store is say, hey, well, tell us a little about their style. And every guy's like, I don't know. And then we scroll through, like, do you have pictures of, the person that you're trying to, gift give? And we did the same thing in the virtual environment. I'm like, hey, do you have pictures? Let's scroll through their Instagram. Let's get a feel for the style and then walk through that line. So it's been really fun on the gifting side. It's been really fun as folks are trying to find, the big statement earrings or the big statement piece for a virtual gala or a virtual event. And that really, the one-on-one appointments, we've just seen a great response to as we think about, folks looking for that alternative shopping platform that they feel safe and comfortable in.
Right. So moving on to talk about in-store events a little bit. I know Kendra Scott has had some really fun jewelry events in the past. When I think of your brand, second to your jewelry, I think of these color bar parties that you guys have had, where you can go in and you can design your own jewelry and switch, mix and match stones. I think that is so much fun. Do you think in-store events are going to bounce back as a way to build engagement?
I do. I do. I think that if you are an experiential brand, and for us, experience is really, really core to who we are. That personalization of the color bar where a customer can come in and pick this shape and then literally pick the stone, because some of the veins in some of our turquoise are a little different. So you get to pick the specific style. Where when I really think about experiences, I think customers are really eager to get back to in person. I think there's this pent up energy as comfort levels continue to kind of trend forward as vaccines roll out, or it's really, I do think people are eager to get back in the store. We actually have continued to do experiences safely throughout COVID, where we do still have one of our philanthropic initiatives is what we call Kendra Gives Back events, where we can host a shopping party for the people and the causes that our customers care about most. A lot for many brands, they pick a cause and that's it. One of the unique differentiators for Kendra Scott is that we put our customers in control of our giving, and we say, what's important to you, who's important to you, and how can we support you in that? And so Kendra Gives Back events allow shopping parties, both in store as well as virtual and digitally, where anything bought during the shopping event, 20% of the proceeds go back to supporting that nonprofit or that individual. So it's a really amazing way to stay engaged. And we've been able to do that kind of privately, either portion off a part of the store for that event to come in, or we go and open the store early or stay late and really make sure that everybody feels safe in that shopping experience. I actually had the pleasure of hosting a Kendra Gives Back event this past weekend, where my husband's company was a race sponsor for the NASCAR event here in Austin. And we had a great sip and shop event that went back to the company's foundation. So it was a wonderful way to have a fun morning out. And, in addition to the race, we were able to raise money for a great cause and get the gals all looking fabulous for the track later on that day.
That sounds like so much fun. I think to your earlier point, people are definitely excited, to get back out and to do things. But I think that everyone might not be on the same comfort level with in-store events, right? So, that being said, like not every method of engagement is going to work for every customer, right? Like it's not a one size fits all type of thing. So, how do you determine which is the best method for which customer?
It's up to the customer, right? And that the core of customer engagement is putting your customer at the center. We all the time talk about our customer as our boss. They're the most important part of our KS family, because without our customer, we don't exist. So really understanding, to your point, the comfort level, and then meeting his, her, he, she, and they's needs based on what they're telling us. So we love to ask questions and understand before we come up with a solution, one size fits all for them. And you heard me talk a little bit about the Kendra Gives Back events, where we pivoted in COVID and have hosted so many more of those virtually, just because it's a fun way to, again, we can get the stylists involved, or you know what, you can shop at whatever leisure you want over the next 48 hours and just use this code at checkout. So there's the customers that do want the high touch and have a little bit of digital virtual interaction like we all are having right now, or to the customers that just, hey, just give me a code and I'm going to go take a look. I'm going to buy a couple things and know that it's going back to supporting one of the things that they care about.
Right. Yeah, I think it's very similar to the customers that come in the store and they want to talk to you and they want a lot of your help, and then the customers who kind of just want you to back up a little bit and let them browse around.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a bit about building a customer engagement strategy. That's obviously a very broad topic. There are a lot of factors to consider here, but where should you start?
The customer engagement strategy is really around understanding and knowing your customer really, really well. And, depending on how big or small you are, kind of how you look at your customer data might look very differently. For us, we love to what we call a golden customer record. It's that kind of what's their purchase history across channels, what did they buy or browse online? What have they bought in store? And are there any notes that we have captured from our stylists and our sales associates' interactions with those customers that allow us a more holistic view of who our customer is? Because customer engagement isn't a one size fits all strategy. I think that there is, from a brand marketing perspective, a one to all message that you're putting out, like, here's what we stand for, and here's how to engage with us. And that trickles down, that one to all is awesome. And then you need to start going into one to some. And it starts with what you know about your customer, that you can do one to some messages that, okay, this group really cares about X. And so we're going to make sure that we give them that relevant information. Or this group really cares about events. So how are we events related to breast cancer awareness? Okay, well, every time that we have an opportunity to support anything related to breast cancer awareness, how do we make sure that that group knows that we're there to support them? And also, hey, you have an opportunity to shop and give back for good. So it's really understanding your customer and, data and marketing technology stacks and IT partnership. All of those are important, but you can do those down to the lowest common denominator and just really understand, like, what do you know about your customer and how do you think about one to all, one to some, and eventually that really one-to-one personal touch, right? If you've got a really bespoke piece and you know that, Mrs. So-and-so was really looking for something with an emerald and you have something that was really beautiful, make sure Mrs. So-and-so knows about it. Don't wait for her to come back. And that's a really kind of very elementary example, but that one-to-one, I think is what it was so special about retailing for so long. And because we've gotten so big and because you can get lost in data analysis and paralysis, like, don't forget the value of that one-to-one relationship. And across, our 120 stores, the value of the one-to-one relationships in the communities is a really big piece where our sales associates, our store managers, are continuing to stay engaged. One of the things that we did at the beginning of the pandemic when we made the decision to close our stores before any local or government mandates to close, we told our sales associates, if you feel comfortable going into the office, you can go in, otherwise stay from home and just start calling our customers. It's a scary time right now. And this isn't about sales. This isn't about a transaction. Just let them know, hey, we've decided to close for the safety of our communities. And I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. How are you feeling right now? And it goes back to what I said earlier, connection first and the transaction will come. When we eventually did reopen our stores, we had so many of those customers come back and share this story of like, I still remember months ago when you called me just to see if I was okay. I couldn't believe that you would do that. Like I've shopped with you 4 times and it was such a scary time. And, I just love Kendra. I always feel so warm and welcome when I come into the store. And it was just so nice to hear that friendly voice checking in on me during such a weird time. And that, like, the connection comes. So that personal one-to-one, is a super important piece along with the one-to-all and one-to-some.
Right. And that's, excuse me. And that's really lovely. I mean, I don't think anyone who did not know me personally called to see how I was doing. So obviously customer personalization is something that's very important. What would you say is the most important thing to keep in mind as you're building this strategy?
I think the most important piece is just know that it's not a one size fits all. Like, you have to look at your business, what makes you special, and really what makes your customer base special. Is it styles? Is it colors? Is it, particular shopping patterns, purchase patterns? Are you all about gifting? Like, I think just getting really clear on what makes you special and not having a one size fits all approach. What works for us doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And what's going to work for you might not work for us. And that's okay, because it goes back to the customer. And if you're serving the needs of your customer, then you are doing a fantastic job.
Right. So definitely a customer first strategy is the way to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me an example of a very successful customer engagement campaign by Kendra Scott?
Oh my goodness. I am kind of impartial to our most recent Mother's Day campaign. We love to call it the Wear It Like a Mom campaign. But we approached Mother's Day totally different this year. It's one of our larger revenue driving opportunities, and we put a massive effort into making Mother's Day special. We have seasonal deliveries, and those are really important to our business. But when we took a step back and said, what's important, what's topical, where's our customer's mindset right now. And it was all about Mother's Day and wanting to make Mother's Day so special, because what the global pandemic really did is put a spotlight on how women were disproportionately impacted of
Right.
leaving the workforce, and moms in particular leaving the workforce and having to play all of these extra roles at home. So we wanted to celebrate them. We wanted to celebrate moms who had to play these extra roles, that leaned into things that they never thought that they would have to do, like tech support from home or homeschooling.
Right.
And then celebrate them who wore life beautifully, that wore it like a mom. And so it started really with our customers. And before we ever did a TV spot, before we started paid advertising, we launched a contest to put our customers at the center of what we were doing and celebrating them who wore it like a mom, where they could nominate themselves or nominate a mom that really has exemplified wearing life beautifully this last year when things were really tough. And that PTO fund, we said, hey, y'all have earned it. Like, we want to celebrate moms, and we're going to give $100,000 to moms that have worn life beautifully this year for some paid time off. You go and take some personal time off on Kendra Scott, because we believe in you and we want to celebrate you. And so that ended up kind of being the first part of our customer engagement, was putting our customers at the center of sharing their stories, amplifying their voices, and celebrating their wins. And then we brought Kendra and some of Kendra's celebrity friends in to help surprise and delight winners. We had Busy Phillips making phone calls. And it was so funny that Kendra and Busy actually made some of the first phone calls together. And Busy was, she's like, I've got, this amount of time, and, I can't wait to do this. And when she saw the impact that she could have with our customers and telling them that they were seen and all of the amazing things that they had to go through this last year, Busy was like, can I make more phone calls? Hey, Kendra, can you give me some more customers to contact? So, it was so fun to see the emotional connection that we were able to make, not only with our customers, but also like how great it was for some of Kendra's, celebrity friends, that they just wanted to be more and more. We incorporated, reached out to Mindy and had her talk about her journey as a mom and things that she was really excited about wearing life beautifully and wearing it like a mom this past year. And then that bridged into our paid campaign, where we did do really big TV push. We did connected TV, we did broadcast TV. We really heavied up in key markets where we have a lot of customers. And then again, the types of video content per channel of really pushing out this wear it like a mom story. And again, tailoring it not necessarily to one to all, but by channel starting to get into the one to some conversations as well.
That sounds like an incredible Mother's Day campaign. And I just covered the other day that you guys have launched Scott Brothers in time for Father's Day, graduation, all of those upcoming holidays. So I'm sure you guys have something exciting in the works for Father's Day as well.
Yes, more to come. We just recently announced it, but keep your eye out. We are heavily leaning into our customers being our megaphone. So you're going to see a lot more of that pop up across channels.
I'll keep an eye out for that. I'm very excited to see that. And then how would you measure how successful a campaign was? What are the metrics that you're looking at?
Yeah, it really goes back to what were your goals, and the responses of kind of what are your KPIs, your key performance indicators, or how do you measure it, goes back to what were you trying to achieve. So in some channels, at a very broad level, when we think about our marketing scorecard, we're looking at sales, right? Like marketing's role in engaging consumers across all channels and across the journey eventually is to support growing the business, right? So we're looking at sales at a very high level. And then we're looking at some of those traffic counts. Within the traffic counts, how many are we retaining? How many are new? How many consumers are we acquiring? And then we're also looking at CRM kind of social signals. So from social signals, it could be everything from how many engagements, how many views, how many likes, how many comments. And then we're also looking at, are we driving revenue through our social channels? Because dollars come back in that again, but dollars aren't always the goal in our social channels. And even things like TikTok, like they'll get there, but there's not necessarily the pixel right now for there to be direct attribution back to our website and to be able to track a specific customer that maybe saw some of our content or saw an influencer and then drives back to our website immediately. But we know that that's an important place for us to be because our customer's there. So as long as you're putting it customer first and building a strategy to engage your customers where they are, then yes, we should absolutely be in TikTok. But that doesn't necessarily mean I can say from here to here, that's how it drove sales. So it's also a really strong relationship with your partners internally and specifically your finance partners on how are we going to look at success and aligning on what is that by channel. And some are really easy to see, like, did we grow our email file? Do we have more, did we lower our unsubscribe rates? Do we have more text messages, mobile phones that opted in to receive communication from us? So by channel, it can vary, but really that alignment internally is going to be important to make sure everybody knows what does success look like and how are we going to measure that.
Right. Absolutely. I'm going to have to check you guys out on TikTok. I don't believe that I follow you just yet, but I'm going to see.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're gonna see a really funny one that we posted almost 2 weeks ago now. But we launched a new movement, a Kendra Scott movement. We partnered with a really big influencer to help us develop this movement. And then our executive leadership team all learned the movement and we launched it internally at a family meeting, all being very silly and authentic to our not so great moves. But our wonderful social team helped us edit all of our outtakes together. And we look pretty, we look in great TikTok form where the weirder, the better within that platform.
Are there TikTok dances going on in this video?
Oh, yes. Yes.
I'm going to have to see this one. I will have to check this out as soon as we sign off here. So this is my very last question for you before I turn it over to our audience questions. How do you see customer engagement tactics evolving within the next few years?
The one constant is change, right? We're not the same people we were a year ago. The world is not the same that it was, 3 months ago. So the evolution of change will always be there. And I think that the customer engagement tactics will continue to evolve with the customer as we all change. Emerging platforms will continue to arrive. And I think just really keeping a pulse on where is your customer going to be influenced? Where are they going for information? Where are they going for people to just help them discover what's new, what's next, and feel confidence about making their purchases? Because a lot of the times customers do appreciate a brand's perspective, but I think over the last 10 years, we've seen them lean into peer reviews a lot more. People that they don't know, influencers that are telling them this is the latest style and this is how to wear this shirt and this is how to style with, with something that's shiny and brocade. What do you pair that with? So they're looking for expertise, not necessarily from brands, but where are they looking for expertise and how do brands engage in that in an authentic and a meaningful way? Clubhouse came on the scene recently as a new emerging channel, and we had Kendra on there after a Shark Tank episode recently. Kendra's been a guest shark 3 times now this past season, and after one of the last time that she was on there, we opened up a Clubhouse and said, "Come, we're going to moderate and talk about what does it mean to be a successful female entrepreneur? What does this mean? What were you looking for in the tank when you were thinking about investing in the next thing?" But it's really the emerging kind of platforms. And as long as you're keeping a pulse on where your customers are, that's going to start to change those tactics that you might use to connect with them.
Right. Okay. Well, those were all the questions that I have for you. I really appreciate you taking some time to come here and talk with us today. And now I'm going to turn it over to Michelle and see if we have any audience questions that came in.
Thanks, Lenore and Mindy. That was a great discussion. And thanks to our sponsor, RDI Diamonds. As a reminder, you can still type questions into the Zoom Q&A box, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. We had a few come in during the chat, and we had a few come in beforehand. And like I said, I'm going to try to get to as many of those as I can. While we give people a few more minutes to enter their questions, I just want to say a quick word about RDI Diamonds. RDI Diamonds, the selection you want, the quality you need. Thousands of diamonds, that's just the beginning. RDI offers a wide range of services and support to help you succeed, from flexible memo options to a partnership with De Beers Group Industry Services to generous stock options and cost-efficient shipping. RDI's goal is to provide the highest care of both highest quality of both care and diamonds to your store. Visit rdidiamonds.com today to learn more. That is rdidiamonds.com. And now I'm going to get started with our listener questions. One that came in that I thought was interesting, came in during the course of the discussion, was about a question that we get asked about on every episode of My Next Question, almost regardless of the topic. It's about lab grown diamonds. Someone wants to know, does Kendra Scott sell any lab grown diamonds? And if not, will it do so in the future?
We don't currently, but I think it's definitely something that everyone in this space is certainly looking at, and we are also part of that group.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that. Someone else asked, how should one interact with a customer who's difficult and one would say, entitled, somebody that just doesn't want to, listen when you try to explain the return policy or seems to think the rules don't apply for them and they just want to get what they want to get, regardless of what the actual circumstances are? How do you deal with like this type of difficult customer?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what I will say is we go back to our pillars of family, fashion, and philanthropy and treating others like family. And so if they're having a bad day or whatever is causing their discontent with one of our sales associates, we're going to lead with empathy. We're going to be incredibly respectful, and we're going to ask questions to really understand how we can best service them. So we really pride ourselves on what we call wow customer service. And so putting ourselves in the shoes of our customer to really understand maybe where they're coming from. And then again, leading with our hearts and having an empathetic point of view of wanting to make sure that we're understanding where we maybe aren't meeting their expectations so that we can make sure that we're exceeding them by the time our customer ends the experience with us.
Wow, that's a very diplomatic answer.
So I worked in customer service for a jewelry company, a few jobs before I came here to National Jeweler. And, I would deal with customers who had spent a significant amount of money and they were unhappy. And, for the most part, like, once the yelling and the anger was done, they would say, I'm really not mad at you. I'm really disappointed that this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the times that these customer service complaints were fixed successfully were the times when we were able to, show empathy and say like, well, okay, maybe you didn't meet all of the things that you should meet for a return, but you know what? We want to keep you. And if this is going to make you happy, then, let's just do that. Yeah. So I think definitely in those situations, you want to be as empathetic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
This is a question for me, not a question from the audience, but I'm just curious. Did Kendra Scott have I assume yes, you had a mask policy. You had to have a mask policy in your stores during the pandemic. Did you have any problems with people arguing about wearing their masks? And if so, how did you deal with them? I'm just curious because this obviously, like I know from reading, it's a big problem in some spaces, like on the airlines, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I know some flight attendants are having a difficult time with passengers not wanting to wear masks. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, it is a really topical question. And I will say from the very beginning, when we were reopening our stores based on kind of local mandates and we were maniacally watching some of the COVID cases around each of the communities that we have the privilege to serve. We always wanted to make sure that we were doing it as safely as possible. And even to this day, our policy is for all of our KS family members to be wearing masks in any of our environments. So I've got Catherine, who is 10 feet away here in the room with me, and she was wearing a mask, and I will make sure I put mine back on as soon as I start to walk out over here in our home office. But all of our retail associates are also wearing a mask still to this day, regardless of location. Very early on, when we went out to our field of dreams, we call them, as we were working on the plans to reopen stores, this was the number one question of what do I do if somebody doesn't want to wear a mask, even though we're requiring it. And even though the local mandate, the law says that they have to, but if they want to make that personal choice, what do we do? So we actually developed de-escalation training. And before we reopened the stores, we walked our entire field of dreams through de-escalation training on how to navigate that really difficult conversation. And based on an individual's comfort level, we gave them some choices of, hey, like if they did not feel comfortable engaging, and yet there was somebody else there that could engage 6 feet away, and very, again, kindly and empathetically say, hey, I understand that that's your personal choice. Our policy is to wear masks, and the local mandate says to wear masks. I would really love to be able to help you, but I would prefer if we maybe just shop together from at least 6 feet away. And I just want to, if that's okay with you, I'd love to continue to help you find whatever you might need today. So it's, again, it's leading with empathy. It's acknowledging and reinforcing that, hey, this is our policy, but also letting them know what their options are. Or if they wanted to go outside and shop, we have mobile POS units. Do you want to shop digitally? And I can bring some things out to you. But there was a variety of options to meet kind of the customer where they were, hold our ground on kind of what our policy was, but also meet the needs and be empathetic to maybe some personal choices and personal beliefs that some of our customers had.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's a major retailer I shop in regularly that has a sign up in the store like, please wear a mask. If you would prefer not to wear a mask, then we can help you online. Like, it's put very nicely, but it's obviously like, if you don't want to wear a mask, it's like suggesting like, maybe you shouldn't be in the store. You can go and shop online. But again, like put very nicely. Um, thank you. Thank you for answering that. I appreciate it. So we have a couple questions that all kind of deal with, there seems to be interest in learning about driving customers. One person wants to know, what do you think of Yelp, the review site, as a driver of new customers?
I think that there's a lot of customers in a lot of categories that are on Yelp. And I think it goes a little bit back to peer reviews. And people sometimes trust people they don't know that seem like regular shoppers, right? More than they maybe trust a brand. And so if your customers are looking for reviews on Yelp, then I would say make sure that you are looking at your reviews on Yelp. And or if that's a place where, hey, customers are shopping with you, I've heard about you on Yelp, or hey, I read that there was a really great customer service experience on Yelp. Then how are you maybe thinking about incentivizing more positive reviews or reviews in general? Because I do think that we should be very transparent and accepting of the good and the challenging, and use that as an opportunity to improve and get better. But do you want to offer a, hey, leave a review and we'll surprise and delight customers that are leaving reviews. But there's ways that you can do that, but understand where your customers are coming from and then decide what your goal is to kind of prompt more of it. Or if that's not for you, where else do you want to reinvest your time where there is an opportunity for traffic driving exercises?
Okay, thank you. Someone else wants to know, how do you increase your following and engagement on Instagram? Another popular question of every webinar. People want to know how to do Instagram well.
Yes, and it is different for everyone. I've worked in for brands where you really need a model image and it's aspirational. And that is what drives the highest number of engagements. And then honestly, we have amazing engagements when it's a flat lay, like truly just a flat lay of product, and it's really beautiful and has a lot of color. So there's no one size fits all. I think that when you're continuing to want to grow, things like Instagram contests and tag a friend type of kind of copy at the bottom, tag a friend that would love this, and get your audience engaging their audiences to help show up and highlight your brand as part of a broader conversation. That helps a lot too.
Okay. And last kind of engagement, what is the best way to reach out to clients so they visit your store? Somebody's looking for in-person visits.
So somebody's looking for an in-person visit. What's the best way to invite them in? It goes a little bit back to by which channel. I would email's great, text is great, Facebook communities, invite them in is great. And the one-on-one, do you have their mobile phone number? And all of this goes a little bit back to can spam policies of like, did they opt in to receive your communication? And making sure that you're following some of those kind of rules and regulations. So if somebody has a more specific question, I'm not sure I'm answering this in the best way.
Yeah, I did. They just said best way to outreach a client so they visit your store. So I think they just mean like how to get people to come in. And I would suggest, I mean, my suggestion would be, I mean, in my opinion, email marketing is pretty good. I think that email marketing and show them something interesting is never bad. I think emails still work. They work on me anyway.
Well, and if you're again, today's day and age, and again, consumer temperatures continuing to evolve and change, but for the longest time, every time that we would have a message around in stores and inviting customers in, we led with safety. Here's what we're doing to keep you safe. Here's what we're doing to keep our community safe. And then we would do the invitation. So kind of, again, putting your customer at the center, what's the most important thing that they would need to do and feel from a brand before they would enter into a store for an in-person shopping experience. It's how are you like keeping them safe. So we have hand sanitizer required when you come in. We will all be wearing masks. We're going to maintain social distancing. We're going to have limited store capacities. If you would like to come in and shop at a private viewing experience, reach out to us because we're happy to accommodate you as well for that type of shopping. But it's again, we have started with safety for a very long time. And then, a reason to come in, like the new collection just launched. I'd love to show it to you. Or, hey, the collection launches on Tuesday. Would love to have you in on Monday to preview it. Or, hey, we're having this amazing give back safely in our store that's really special about a cause that you care about and would love to have you participate with us in that. So, I mean, finding the reason that your customers might want to come in, like the channel and how you engage with them is important, but the kind of content of your messaging for that invitation and understanding before somebody can even receive an invitation and hear what the details are, like where's their head at in terms of whether it's safety or convenience, et cetera.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting what you said about personal shopping, like private appointments. I see a lot more retailers doing that now. And I find that appealing, not just because, of safety reasons, but also become that then I know, like, I want this person's going to help me find this. I do not have to go in the store and try to find somebody who's free, who's also running around trying to help 10 other people. Like, X person is going to meet me at the store at X time and they're going to help me find jeans that fit me well, or they're going to help me find this or that, or, jewelry for Mother's Day in this case of Kendra Scott. I think that's really appealing on so many levels.
Yeah, we had a really fun time kind of in COVID doing private events. So many of our stores have this experiential component, right? Like our color bar was where people gathered and created and had great connections with their friends or family members, where we did bachelorette parties or, girls' night outs. And those things were, a little different over the last year, but we would do those private events where kind of folks would have their bubble and that's who they were safe with. And then we would set up private events where it was like, oh my gosh, this is like this sense of like, I needed this human connection with the people I feel safe with. And they got to create and laugh and have a great time. But that was, something that we really loved, but that was a reason to come be safe with us, bring your bubble in, and we're going to be super excited to engage with you.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. So you mentioned earlier you were talking about a memorable consumer campaign, and you mentioned the Mother's Day campaign, which Busy Phillips, which sounds really cool. And someone wanted to know, does memorable always translate to success?
That is a good question. Memorable does not always translate to success. I feel very grateful that this campaign has translated to be very successful. But I think that we can all probably go back and think of some amazing campaign tagline or a funny commercial spot or something that maybe we still use in pop culture today that we can't quite remember which brand that was associated with. So it's memorable, but maybe it didn't hit in terms of the long lasting power of like, who did that again? I can't remember. So memorable doesn't always translate to success, but I think connection is really important. Like I think that the amount of connections that we were able to make, because part of the conversation was not just tied to Mother's Day, and we're continuing this Wear It Like a Mom's campaign, because you're a mom 365 days a year. And in May in particular, it's not only Mother's Day, it's also National Mental Health Awareness Month. And as we think about supporting moms on this incredible journey, we are very committed to making sure that mental health awareness is part of that conversation and removing the stigma that it's okay to not be okay. So part of the campaign after Mother's Day now includes more messaging around our partnerships with the National Mental Illness Alliance, and as well as Active Minds for a younger customer. So we worked with our college ambassador programs. We call them our GEMs. We're at over 100 campuses this year, and heading into graduation weekends, which kind of have flown kind of last weekend, this coming weekend, we are providing resources with our partner Active Minds to really facilitate resources and conversations around mental illness and mental health in general. Like, it's healthy to think about, taking care of ourselves and really understanding where we are and what we might need. And so that's still a message that is tied to wearing it like a mom, that you're not alone. We see you. It's been hard. And here's some additional resources, including a charm that we launched where a portion of the proceeds, 50%, go back to NAMI, our National Alliance of Mental Illness. So again, it's a very virtuous cycle. We use fashion to give back, right? We put our family at the center. What's our customer really experiencing right now? What do they need? We use our fashion to then help answer and service them with some of those greatest needs around. Right now, the spotlight is on mental health and this global mental health crisis that we are all experiencing.
Yeah, and I mean, that's definitely true. I mean, you mentioned college graduation. That's definitely true for younger people, high school and college aged.
Yeah, I mean, there are all of the studies that have come out in this last year about as students have had to stay at home, if they haven't had that social interaction that so many of them crave and need, that has also really impacted their ability to connect. And even here locally, Dell Children's Hospital, Michael and Susan Dell have just kind of issued a large endowment to continue to grow the Children's Hospital wing to address mental health, because the need for it continues to rise. And moms are often the ones navigating that, not just for themselves, but for their families, for their kids. So, we're here to support our family in all of those ways, not only with mental health and Mental Health Awareness Month, but you will continue to see us really lean into supporting what's important to our families and the communities that we have the privilege to serve.
And we'll be curious to see. I know you mentioned this earlier, but Scott Brothers, the new line of men's jewelry, we're curious to see what charities you're supporting around Father's Day and with that new line.
Yeah, well, the big one that we're going out with messaging nationally is really with the Peyton Manning's Children's Hospital. And so Peyton is a friend of the brand. He was so excited to partner in this way for our men's launch, and with all proceeds from one of our pieces within the men's collection to be able to go back to really further support the resources that are needed to continue to touch more lives at kind of the Peyton Manning Children's Hospital in Tennessee.
Okay.
If anyone is interested in reading more about the new collection, Michelle did drop a link in the chat to the story. We have a little more information about it, and you can look through some pictures to see what's coming up.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lenore, for that shout out. I did, and that is Lenore's story. It's getting a lot of traffic on our site, and like Lenore said, the link is in the chat if you want to check out Kendra Scott Brothers, the men's collection.
Promotion right there.
Mindy, one last question for you. Someone wants to know, it's a two-part question. Part one, what are some wins you have for 2020 that made you proud? And second part, what are your goals for 2021 and how do you plan to achieve them?
The huge win was this cross-functional approach to Mother's Day. It required us to move some delivery dates. It required us to think a little differently about merchandising planning and allocation across our different channels. It was a huge win, not just from a marketing perspective, but from a total company perspective of how we've evolved to keep our customer at the center of every decision that we make and everything that we do. And then a little bit on 2021 and what our goals are. Continuing to keep our customer our boss is first and foremost. So meeting he, she, and they wherever they are, and really thinking through what's our role in serving them and making their lives better. Giving them the confidence through our incredible fashion, helping put good into the world based on what's important to them. and really treating everyone like family and making sure that people feel seen. I think that that's one of the most important things that we can do, and leading with empathy and leading with our hearts in all that we do. From a business perspective, how does that translate? I think everybody's focused on e-commerce right now. We benefited from a really great wave and shift of our customers being willing to shop with us safely from their couch on their computers or from their mobile phones. So we want to continue to accelerate that growth. And we also know that based on our store traffic, folks are coming back to see us. And I think there's that craving for experiences. And our stores are so warm and inviting and fun that it's been great to make sure that we're continuing to service that customer safely and meeting our customer where they are in their comfort levels. And we're going to continue to do things like the virtual shopping or the private appointments or the private events. And I think that it's just really keeping a pulse on that experiential component and making sure that that stays really special. And then I think that we just want to continue to find meaningful ways to engage with our customers and amplify our brand within what's important to them.
Okay. Well, that sounds like quite a bit for 2021, but I'm sure you'll do great. And I love those earrings, by the way. Kendra Scott, I presume.
Yes, they're part of our new collection. They're the Eileen Gold Statement earrings. It's a linear pearl. So I think pearls are trending, and Kendra just fell in love with the linear pearl. She's used it in several collections over the years, and this year we were super excited to bring it back for summer.
Those are lovely.
Yeah. And I mean, great for a Zoom call, right? Everybody was all about earrings last year because we could only see each other basically from the neck up. So that made sense. Thanks, Mindy, so much for joining us today. And Lenore, thank you for hosting. This was a really great discussion. My next question will return. We're going to be on next week, next Thursday, not our usual Tuesday, but Thursday, June 3rd at noon Eastern. I'm going to be the host of that episode, and I'm going to be catching up with the jewelry coach. Pat Henneberry is going to be my guest, and Pat's been very busy. We're going to be chatting with her about life during the pandemic, market trends, her latest business venture, and her new book. You can sign up to attend that webinar on our site. I've just dropped that link into the chat. Thanks again to our host, our guest, and to all of our audience members for joining us today. Please take care. And for those marking Memorial Day, enjoy the long weekend. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.